Hey Internet, it's RJ. Welcome back. Thanks for tuning into the show today. Now, today's episode, we're going to talk about one of the more powerful protections that credit cards offer, and that is the credit card chargeback. So, typical fashion, I will tell you what a chargeback is, how it works, why it came to be. We'll walk through the process, some things you need to know. Then stay around to the end because I'm going to tell you my actual story, use case, going through a credit card chargeback at the moment. So if that sounds interesting to you, then go ahead, press the subscribe button, let's get to work. Now, first things first, let's define what a credit card chargeback is. And, I'm always a fan of when things are named exactly what they are, right? So a credit card, you put a charge on it. So a chargeback is the process of kind of pushing that back off to the merchant. And you would end up doing this because something was wrong with the purchase. Either you were due a refund you didn't get, maybe it was a fraudulent purchase, maybe the product was dead on arrival, what have you. Those are reasons, and ideally you couldn't come to an agreement with the store owner, right, to get a refund, so you go ahead and do a chargeback. Now, the reason we have chargebacks today is because they're a part of two laws for both credit cards and debit cards. So let's take a look at that to get a better understanding of how this came from and the history. So the two laws we have, chargebacks for credit cards were first implemented in the 1974 Fair Credit Billing Act. The section is correction of billing errors. Now, debit cards also have these as well. Debit cards, it was implemented in the Electronic Funds Transfer Act of 1978. Now, prior to this, there wasn't really any protective measures for consumers. So as a result, if something went wrong, it was fraud, most likely you were kind of out of luck. Now, interestingly enough, the bank is kind of set up, and we're going to go through the process in a minute, but the bank is kind of set up as the middleman or your intermediary, if you will. Consumer is the one who's going to identify there's a problem. Merchant's on the other end, so you have the bank. And the reason they put the bank in the middle is because it was at least thought or understood that the bank could be an impartial judge in this process, meaning the bank didn't really have anything to gain or lose to a degree. Meaning, if the cardholder works out being correct, then the bank's going to take the money from the merchant, give it back. If the cardholder's wrong, then no big deal. I still think it costs the bank time to look into this stuff and everything. We'll get into that, but that's how you can debate whether the bank would be unbiased or not, but that's the history of it. So let's take a look at the process now to kind of put this all together, and then we'll get into some examples and best practices. So here we have it, the chargeback process as a whole. So again, the card holder is going to initiate this in number one. Now the issuer sends the transaction back to the acquirer electronically. That's kind of the middleman who handles the transaction in between the bank and the store. So the merchant either is going to accept the chargeback, or they could fight it by sending compelling evidence to the acquirer. So we drop back down, we loop all the way back. So number 5, acquirer reviews the evidence sent by the merchant and ensures it meets requirements. Now they don't necessarily list what those requirements are, which would of course be helpful. And then number 6, issuer reviews the compelling evidence sent by the merchant and makes a decision on the chargeback case. And then that's kind of them putting the bank in the middle again. And then number 7, cardholder and merchant are notified of the case decision. Either party can go into arbitration if they disagree with the decision. So you do have some level of recourse, but at that point, that's probably not going to be worth it unless it's like a really expensive charge. So overall, that is the process. You can see how the bank ends up being a middleman. Now, it's important to note, like, a chargeback isn't necessarily a layup. Some stores can fight you on this. Some do, and I think some guys have let me know in the comments that certain issuers don't necessarily just side with the customer automatically. Now, other issuers do or can because hey, the customer's the one using their card multiple times. And it's much more likely a customer will drop a card than, a merchant's going to say, I'm not taking Chase cards or Bank of America cards anymore. Now, we will get into some slides in a second about kind of how much this costs the industry just for interest's sake. With that said, if we go back to number 1 and we start talking about how do you initiate that chargeback, now it's going to differ slightly issuer to issuer. Now mine was Chase, and I'll get you the details in a second. But when you want to start initiating this, what you want to do is go into your account. I find it easier to do online on a computer, but you probably do it through the app. Go to the specific charge you're talking about, and then you're really looking for something that says file a dispute. It's not going to say credit card chargeback. At least in my case, it said file a dispute. And you can see here that Chase is going to walk you through some questions. I'm going to try to get some information out of you and then direct it appropriately. Now, overall, that part, initiating, was really easy. As we saw from the process, once you initiate it, you're really not involved anymore. It's kind of on the process to work out. Now, what you also notice is they didn't actually ask me for any documentation or anything like that. Now, on this channel, we do harp about documenting everything. Now, the receipt is probably covered by the charge on the card. But ideally in this process, you've tried to work it out with the merchant first. That's usually best practice. You don't necessarily have to, but it's probably easier if you're like, hey, can I get a refund? And they're being uncooperative, then you launch into this process, so to speak. So if you have correspondence or documentation from that, I would keep it ready, because if they come back and say, no, I'm not doing this, well, then you can, provide that. Pictures of the product is broken, things like that. Just be ready, because again, this is not necessarily a layup. I think more often than not, they'll probably side with you, the bank, but again, not a layup. So other things to know here. Now, again, I said, yes, if it's, if something's wrong, then try to work with the merchant. But you also use chargebacks for fraud. So if your card is stolen or compromised or something, and you're like, I don't recognize this charge at all, then you just go straight to the chargeback, and you're also going to want to contact the bank as well. That's another big one. They're the similar things, but they're also different in how you react. So overall, that's kind of chargebacks at a high level, but I did promise you a slide. We'll take a look at how much this costs the industry, because I think it is interesting how chargebacks work. So annual chargeback stats, this is from Javelin Strategy and Research. So 2018, a little bit dated, but I think it's interesting enough for our purposes. So on the left-hand side, percentage of consumers. Then on the bottom, how many of those dispute a charge. So you can see dispute any charge, 45%, 1, 2, or 3 or more. So folks are still doing this, which is good. And then chargebacks cost merchants about $17 billion in 2017. And then total revenue lost due to chargebacks is expected to hit $25 billion by 2025, which is pretty interesting. So overall, that's chargebacks as a whole. The topic isn't really that complicated, because we don't have that much to do in the process. But with the remaining time here, I'm going to quickly walk you through my example if you're interested. So this is the Chase Inc. Business Unlimited card. I opened a new bank account, surprise, and went to fund it with a credit card, $500, pretty cool, some quick rewards points. So 2 days later, the bank, they locked me out of my account, which isn't uncommon when you open up like 70 bank accounts in a year. But I called them. They're like, hey, we don't understand. I was trying to link an Ally bank account, and this story still doesn't make sense to me, so it might sound convoluted. But anyways, I was trying to link my bank account from Ally. So Ally made the micro deposits to link a bank account. And then apparently this bank tried to pull back the micro deposits for 23 cents or something, and Ally said, no, you can't have that, because micro deposits don't come from my account, they come from Ally's account. And so this bank took it as like, well, hey, wait a minute, do you have any money in this Ally account? Why are you trying to take money? So I'm talking to the bank manager, like, I didn't do this, you did this. And so long story short, we could not come to an agreement. So I was like, you know what? The bonus is only $100 for opening up this bank account. Just shut it down. She said, fine, I'll shut it down. And that's where we were going anyway. She wanted proof that I had like 10, 15 grand in my Ally account. I was like, I don't have to give you proof of this. This is like too much work, and you're not even explaining why you tried to take back the money. Anyways, since I had already funded the account with $500 from the credit card, normal practice is the bank keeps it on their balance sheet for like a week to make sure you don't do a chargeback or something, and they're protected. It sucks because they don't give you interest, but you still get to keep the credit card points, because what they'll do is they'll mail you a check. This has happened plenty of times. Fine, no big deal. So a month goes by, I still haven't seen the check from these guys, and again, to my earlier point in the video, best practice would have been to phone them back up and be like, hey, where's my check? But I was already annoyed that I had to deal with this in the beginning, and I could make a video about credit card chargeback. So I filed a chargeback. That's the screens you saw earlier going through Chase. And then, again, it was pretty easy. I'll put on screen the letter, because Chase mailed me a letter, which I thought was interesting. I'm just going to read it, but I'll put it on screen so you guys can see it. So here's an update on your disputes. So you can see the transaction post date, the merchant name, and then the amount, and then you can kind of go through, and then here's what you need to know. Now, I thought interesting enough from this, they're saying, hey, the merchant actually gets 2 billing statements to respond to this, which is like 2 months, basically. So clearly you can see from the date of the letter, I didn't wait 2 months to make this. It seems like waiting way too long to wait 2 months to do this. So if they don't pay out, I'll make a follow-up video, but they should, because I didn't, they never mailed the check. Now what happens is Chase, to take care of their customer, they will like instantly credit you back the $500. Now it's a credit, you can use it. I'll put up, you can see it in my account. You can use it, but if the merchant fought back and for whatever reason I lost, then they're going to take that credit back. Because remember, Chase, we think they're operating as the intermediary, but Chase will not lose money on this. So, it's a credit until this thing is fully closed, and I would expect to get another letter. So if I end up losing for somehow, there's another dispute, I will make another video about it. But overall, that's been my process. It's really easy to do, but again, it's just not a layup. So I'll keep you posted on that if you're interested. So just a last part here, just, remember to keep this in your back pocket should you need it. Credit card chargebacks can come in handy. Again, I was going to be out $500. Even if I went back and, dealt with the bank again, how long is it going to take for them to actually verify this and cut me a check in the mail versus going the chargeback route? I have my $500 back the next day. Chase and those guys will sort it out in the background. But anyways, guys, if you like this one, drop me a thumbs up down below. If you found it particularly interesting, consider subscribing to the channel. Again, posting content just like this every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Of course, right back here every Sunday with all the news you can use on the week that was in credit and finance. My question for you guys is, let me know your experience with credit card chargebacks down below. How many have you done? What issuers have come through for you? Have any issuers given you a hard time about this? I'd love to get your thoughts and experiences. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this one. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next one.